Hello everyone, my name is Madeline and welcome to the very first Woolly Witch of the West podcast. I have several different aliases online. If you're looking for me on Instagram or Ravelry, I'm Woolly Witch of the West. Actually on Ravelry that was too long, so I ended up with WoolyWitchotWest. I'm also the co-owner of a local yarn shop in Eureka, Montana called the Woolery Mammoth, and you can find us on Facebook for that, as well as Araignée, or the spider half of Fox and Spider Arts, if you also enjoy silly little webcomics in with your doses of fiber arts. So this is my first podcast. I'm not very technologically savvy right now, so I'm just using the webcam on my computer to record this since it's kind of an experiment, so I'm getting a little glare on my glasses, and I'm not at all sure how the sound or picture quality is going to come out, so bear with me on that, please. If I'm going to do this again and I start getting followers and people who are interested, I will definitely upgrade my recording and video equipment, but for right now, I'm just kind of working with what I've got. So I will make sure that I post all the links and my handles and things in the show notes below. I'm gonna do up a YouTube account after this for us, and so that's all of that. So why am I doing a podcast? There are a million video podcasts of a similar nature on fiber arts, knitting, and spinning. And I think they're a lot of fun, so that's kind of why I just decided to start one. So there are just a million podcasts, and it's kind of fun to share your projects, learn from one another, grow. There's also a little bit of project accountability that comes from having a podcast, I think. So I'm going to share my projects with all of you, and hopefully that will help encourage me to really work to finish them, because I'm kind of a person of a million projects. So hopefully you guys will be able to help me out with some accountability, and we will learn and share with each other. So what do? I am an artist and aspiring yarn shop owner. I live in northwestern Montana. As far as fiber arts go, I'm kind of a from fluff to stuff kind of person. So I really enjoy starting with raw fleece and processing wool, and then dyeing wool and spinning it, and then turning up with a finished project at the very end. That's kind of my favorite thing to do. I would say that as far as all of that goes on the processing fiber and spinning end of things, I'm definitely a novice at all of that, so I'm kind of learning as I go, and there will definitely be a curve with that, so keep that in mind if you're taking my advice or sharing my ideas. I'm by no means an expert. I'm definitely learning. I have been knitting since I was 18 years old. My mom taught me over Christmas break when I had first moved out of the house and needed something to do, when I wouldn't admit that all I wanted to do was go home and hang out with her. So she taught me how to cast on and knit, and when I got to the end of my first scarf, we realized that neither of us knew how to cast off. So from there, I've been kind of a self-taught via YouTube tutorials and books knitter, and no going back from that. That's definitely my favorite. I've also picked up on some weaving over the summer, so that's kind of mostly what you're gonna see in this podcast, is I'll kind of go through all of that. In the future, I'm hoping to add in a section where I talk about if I'm reading any books, what I'm going through with that. At the moment, I'm not actually reading any books that are related to fiber arts, but I hope to change that soon. So maybe the next time I do a podcast, I'll have a book to talk to you guys about. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast. I talk kind of quickly when I'm nervous, so. So other than that, I'm kind of go through things in order. So if I'm processing something, I would kind of show you that and talk about that. At the moment, I'm not. So it will go from processing, spinning, what I'm knitting, and finished projects, and books in there if I happen to be reading any books, and hopefully some of you will be interested, and yeah, so we'll just kind of see how that goes. So at the moment, I'm not really set up to show you what's on my wheel. I just had barely started a braid, and I don't actually know if that's what I'm going to be spinning this week. At our yarn shop, we have people come in and spin on Saturdays, so I will be doing some spinning tomorrow, so the next time I see you, I'll have some new things to show you off my wheel. But in the meantime, I thought I would show you the most recent things that I've spun up. So I've got a few things here. Excuse my reach. So in December, I did my first fiber swap, which was fantastic. And my partner was a lovely woman named Elizabeth from Pennsylvania. And this is the most recent spin. Can I get that to focus? She sent me 3 huge bats that she had dyed, and she believed that she dyed this with Walton's food coloring. And ooh, my filter is getting wonky. So I spun these up with an intentional fractal spin to get kind of continuous striping and modeling of color, and it's not really coming across. Oh, that's better. That's way closer to the colors that they actually are on the camera, but there's sparkle throughout, so I ended up with this kind of, if I unwrap it, is that better? Space yarn is what it reminds me of. It's all black and blue and purple, and what looks kind of like white is actually a really light blue. And I'm really happy with it. I don't actually remember the type of wool that this bat, she made me bats, was from, but it's kind of probably the longest staple I've spun to date. So I'm not sure what that is, but this is something I'm going to be caking up here very soon. One of my goals for 2017 is to try and always be knitting something that I've spun. So to work a little bit more with hand spun than commercial grade yarns than I have in the past, which will be nice because I've done a lot of knitting with commercial grades yarns recently, but I'll talk more about that later. And from that same fiber swap, she found out I was a novice spinner, and I think she really kind of like hooked me up with all the fun things to try. So I hadn't spun anything with sparkle in it before, like that yarn I just showed you, and I hadn't done any lock spinning before either, but she sent me some really gorgeous, really vibrant, bright mohair and long locks. So I spun up. So I am a novice, so I looked up, and this is a combination of tail spinning, and I did spin the core for this yarn at the same time that I was putting in the locks. So it's probably a little overspun. It's kind of springy, but I'm really pretty happy with it. There isn't very much of it. It took me a really long time, and I think I might have 6 yards. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I almost feel like you don't have to do anything with it, do you really? My grandmother's vote is that I turn it into an art piece and drape it over a painted canvas, or use it in some weaving, that's probably what I'm gonna do with that. So there's that. And the last thing that I've spun up most recently, this is the most recent thing that's off my wheel, is this is mystery wool. So I know it was processed in a mill near here in Montana. I don't know the breed for the fiber content, but it came as pencil roving that still had some of the lanolin in it, so it's really nice to spin as kind of a beginning spinner. It made it really easy. And this stuff was really fun for me because last summer I went on a dye kick and did a lot of natural dyeing. So this, and it's looking a little more brown on the camera than it is in person. But it's really kind of a light, dusty pink, and this was done with choke cherries, which was a really fun, see that? There's some variation. It's a 2-ply, probably a slightly, is that out of focus, slightly heavy fingering weight. And this was exciting for me because this is the spin I've done where it's the most even I've spun to date, and I got the most yardage. There's probably around 350 yards here, all caked together. There are several, like 2 or 3 skeins. Since I don't have a jumbo fly, I applied this all in an Ashford traditional wheel with the regular bobbins, so I had to break it up. But I'm really happy with the color, and it's very soft. And I didn't use the actual juice from the choke cherries when I was dyeing this, because why would you waste that? So the juice from the choke cherries became jelly, and I used the leftover guts. And so that's how I got this more muted color. I know if you dye with the juice straight from the berries, you'll get a much darker kind of dusty browny pink that is really lovely. So I think I'm probably going to try that this summer since there are lots of choke cherry trees around here. Choke cherries also have a lot of alum in their skins, so that's kind of nice. It's an instant gratification dye. You don't have to pre-mordant your wool to be able to do that. So for people who aren't dyers, a mordant is usually an oxide, a metal, so you can use alum, and copper and iron are the mordants that I tend to use, although the copper and the iron I use more as a modifier, usually on wool that I've already used alum on to change the color and shade. So things like choke cherries have alum in them already. Onion skins have tannic acid, which will also work. So there are some natural dye stuffs that you can use where you don't have to prep your fiber first. You can just kind of go at it, which is kind of fun. So there's that. I have no idea what I'm going to make with it. And I do also often use my hand-dyed and hand-spun to make items for sale. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell whatever I make with this. I might have to keep this. I'm thinking some kind of shawl. So I'm going to cake it up and double check the actual yardage on it, and then start looking for patterns. So that will be fun. So that's spinning. And as far as knitting projects, I am really terrible. I have so many projects that I'm in the middle of that I'm not going to show you all of them at this time. I'm hoping that this podcast will kind of remind me to finish up things that I have started that I've been working on for a long time before I cast on too many other things. So hopefully that will work out for me. I do have some things. This is my guiltiest unfinished project, because these, aren't they pretty? So these are mittens done up with Icelandic wool, and they are my spouse creature's belated Yule gift. So that's not great. It's February, and we live in Montana, so they definitely could have used them. I haven't done an awful lot of color work, so I'm kind of challenging myself with that. So you can see on the second mitt, I just need to sew up the top here and do up the thumb, but of course I couldn't just leave it at that. I have to be fancy, so I also, you can see the waste yarn in the middle of the mitts. I'm making these mitts that they can open so the fingers will, so they can free their fingers and do other things. but they're really warm. You can really tell how much bigger than my hands. Their hands are bigger. So hopefully I won't say this is the very next project that I'm going to finish because I'm working on something else with a timeline, but soon. And we still have like 2 feet of snow outside, so it's not like it's warming up quickly here. Spring is coming on really slowly this year. So there's that. The other thing I'm working on with the timeline is the Woollery Mammoth has started up Sock Sundays is something that Cheryl, the lady who started the shop, used to do, and we have resurrected it, so hopefully it's something that will take off. So every Sunday of a month we choose a new sock pattern for the month, and people show up and we knit it all together. So we haven't had an awful lot of turnout, but we did have a few people show up and learn to knit basic socks, so hopefully they'll come back and learn new patterns in the future. But for the month of February, we chose the Smaug socks. And I'm terrible. I didn't look this up before I started talking to you about it. I will make sure I post the link to the pattern and the name of the woman who wrote the pattern on Ravelry in the show notes below. So these are really neat. See? They make me feel, they're kind of epic. It looks kind of like armor. There's this lovely kind of scaly pattern up here. And then lots of pearls, which is not something I'm used to. And the heel is fantastic. And then there's this cable that starts by the heel and it goes all the way across the top of your foot and over your toes. So each sock is different. You have to knit them separately. I really like knitting socks 2 at a time, so I hadn't done a cuff down sock 1 at a time in a while. But one of my other goals for 2017 is to keep up with the Sunday Sock Club. So that will mean knitting a pair of socks in a month, which is a challenge for me. I love knitting socks, but I don't make very many of them in spite of that. So I actually was almost done with this sock and realized I had not started the toe decreases soon enough because I have teeny tiny feet, so I had to frog a bunch of it. And this is only the first sock. I have not started the second sock. So this is my time constraint project. I'm going to try really hard to finish these before the first Sunday in March when we will be starting March socks. So there's that. This is also, I'm using Regia super stretch sock yarn because I have kind of bigger calves, but look at it. Is so great. It is super stretchy and I really like it. It is kind of a challenge to keep gauge with though, because the yarn itself, if you pull it under tension, there's a really big difference. So that is kind of a challenge. And I believe I knit to gauge for this pattern, so I'm using size 1 needles for these socks. So there are those guys. Hopefully those will be done before next Sunday. Not this coming Sunday, the Sunday after that. So we'll see. Also, I have a tradition where I start a new pair of socks in January. New socks for the new year. So these are my New Year's socks. And the yarn I'm using, which is kind of tangled, is a Zauberwool, one of their crazy colorways, kind of chartreuse and green and black, and they'll stripe and I love them. I'm knitting them 2 at a time, magic loop style, and it's just kind of a made-up pattern, and this is the Fish Lips Kiss heel. I did not make the pattern for my foot like the pattern calls for. I just kind of followed the heel to see what it was like and if I would like it. So the next pair of socks that I make that are just kind of generic unpatterned socks, I'll do the cardboard cutout and do that whole thing. But yeah, I really like the short row heel. So there are those guys, and I have no excuse to not finish these soon. I'm pretty close with those. And I think these are ones as well. I'm using Cubics needles for these, and I love them. I want Cubics needles in every single size and style. They're probably my favorite needles to date. I haven't really found needles that I like more. So there it goes. I don't usually have 2 pairs of socks on the needles at the same time. That's kind of unusual for me. And I'm only going to show you one more project that I'm currently working on. So aside from the mittens, my my spouse beast is coming home from work, so they're going to cross in the background really quick. And then I'll kind of wrap this up quickly. I did this on purpose and scheduled it so I would have kind of a short podcast to start. There they go. And it wouldn't be too long, so it'd be easy for me to edit and then get some feedback from you guys before I move on to the next one. So the last project that I have that I need to finish is kind of a long standing project, and it is this really fun project that's kind of a pain to work on. So the yarn is Dream Yarn. I found it at the Woolery Mammoth a long time ago and held out and didn't buy it because it was expensive, rightfully so, because it's mohair, it's hand painted. The colors are fantastic. My dog is very excited to see Angeli. I started knitting it on metal needles. I probably won't do that with mohair again. And I just started doing a shawl with it. So the pattern is called the Ruched Azelea wrap. It's on Ravelry. I also did not look up the name of the author of that particular pattern before I started recording. I'm sorry, I'll work on that. I will link to it in the show notes. So this is kind of what it turned out like, and I originally bought this yarn selfishly for me. So I think that's part of why I haven't finished it, because I want to be somebody who can wear this color orange. But I can't really. So this is a very luxurious project that I thought I was making for myself. But I'm not really. This is going to be for someone else, which is fine. I just need to finish it, and the pattern is really brilliant. To get the gathering in it, you use a smaller size needle and do a few rows with a decrease in it, and then you just move back up to a bigger size needle. I think when it's done it will be really brilliant, and I was looking for a simple pattern that wasn't going to be too complicated, that would really showcase the yarn and still be light enough. This will be quite warm, but we also live in Montana and it gets really cold here in the wintertime, so someone will end up with this. I'm not sure if it will be a gift or something that I put up for sale, but there you go. This and the mittens, those are my accountability projects, so if I show up and do another podcast and I haven't worked on them or finished them, I'm asking you to bother me about it, because I need to finish them so I can move on in life and work on finishing other unfinished projects that I really should probably be working on. So other than that, I just am going to do a really quick section on things that I finished recently. I only have a couple. One of them is the obvious, and I know, oh, my computer just went to sleep. A lot of you are probably sick of seeing them. Yeah, I've made a million of these. They've gone all over the country. Not really going to talk about it more, but suffice to say, for various people in various places. I've been knitting with way more acrylic yarn than I normally do or really like to do. It's not perfect. It's not really terrible. I just don't really like it, and I think it's squeaky. Does anybody else think that's true? You knit with it and it's squeaky. Squeaky. So I'm going to mail that out soon. That's for someone. And the other thing I finished recently is from Handspun. And I was gifted a gorgeous 4-ounce braid from Virtuous Fibers in the tropical colorway. I did have the specs on that. And I spun it up and didn't want to break up the colors, so this is my first chain plied yarn. So it was very uneven, and I knitted up in kind of my go-to hand spun hat pattern, which is the bubble hat pattern, and that is by Virginia Tullock, and is available for free on Ravelry. I'll also link that below in the comments. You can do it with a hat band. You can do it so it's a little bit more floppy. I didn't do the extra hat band on mine. I really love her woven stitch brim though, instead of like a ribbed edging. I like it a lot. So I did this guy up. He was really fun to spin. It's merino and bamboo, so there's lots of variation where the dye took differently on the bamboo than it did the wool. Oh, that's way out of focus. I'm learning, guys. I'll get better. But that hat pattern, just to say a little more about it, is just amazing because it's designed that you can change your gauge and different fibers and different weight. I've knit it, I think 4 different times now with varying weights. For example, this is the first time I used the pattern. This is not hand spun. This is, I believe it's not Pakukura. It's by Mirasol, which is a really great company that supports schools in South America. So this is what it looks like with the brim. So this is alpaca date yarn. My spouse piece takes me on yarn dates sometimes. So you can see it's a little slouchier, but I knit this on like size 4 needles, and it's a single ply, and it's still just a basic seed pattern and the brim with the buttons, kind of like she has in her pattern on Ravelry. So there's that. It's like my go-to favorite hat pattern. So that was fun. And that rainbow hat has actually sold. A lot of people are waiting on tax returns, and I am not sad that some of you want to spend it on my hats. I really appreciate it, of course. If you do decide to buy something from me, I generally sell my hand spun and hand knit goods through Fox and Spider Arts. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon. All of that good stuff will be below. So I may do like some kind of a blog for a more in-depth review on that bubble hat pattern and why I love it so much. But if you have you need to stash bust something, or you have hand spun that you don't have a lot of, that you don't know what to do with, give it a shot. It's super fun, very fast, instant gratification project. So there's that. And that's pretty much it. I was going for about half an hour for this first one, so that's what we've gotten. If you have any feedback, comments, questions, silly things, go ahead and pop them down in the comments for me below. If you'd like to see more podcasts from me in the future, please subscribe and connect to me through social media. So that's all of that. I think that's a wrap for me. That's kind of all I've got. Extra info side note, that's Marnouche the Persian cat. She'll probably be causing trouble in all sorts of my podcasts. And the general background chaos, that's the studio. So I'll probably be shooting from here pretty often. Sometimes I might shoot from the Woolery Mammoth. I'll talk to my business partner and the shop owner, Cheryl, about that. Maybe I'll give you guys a tour next time. So there you go. hopefully I will hear from some of you guys. Do let me know what you think. And next time I'll probably try shooting on my phone or an iPad instead for better video quality. I can already tell that this is a little bit grainy. So go with that. Other than that, it's lunchtime, so I'm gonna go. See you later.